Deshaun Watson is unhappy with the Texans right now. There's also rumors of him being uncertain with his future with the franchise and the possibility of him asking for a trade. The Texans are probably going to ask for a lot. They're going to ask for a lot of draft capital. This is not DeAndre Hopkins we're talking about. This is not Bill O'Brien doing the dumbass trades. And this is probably not like, the 2016 NFL draft situation where the Eagles traded like several picks to the Cleveland Browns so they could get Carson Wentz. Honestly, any team that wants Deshaun Watson could possibly that's probably gonna give away a large chunk of their draft capital. So I'd say at minimum 3 first-round picks. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. What is going on, everyone? I am your host of the Very Cold Lasagna podcast, DylanLasagna, and welcome to this VCL Extra. And, well, I talked about it on the very first real episode of the podcast. I put in that clip of what was mentioned, what the topic of this extra is going to be about. And, well, it's official. Deshaun Watson has formally requested a trade. Has been reported on by several insiders, most notably the two big ones, NFL Network's Ian Rappaport and ESPN's NFL senior insider Adam Schefter. So it's official. Deshaun Watson formally wants out of Houston. He has formally requested a trade. The star QB is no longer happy with the Texans. And are we surprised? Are we surprised with the Texans at this point? And are we surprised with Houston? This is like a big oof. Just a big oof. Like, there's nothing else you can describe. Like, what's happened to the city of Houston in the last year. 2020, the Houston Astros got caught and were punished for their sign stealing scandal, and then just 1 year later, the Houston Rockets franchise player James Harden gets traded to the Brooklyn Nets, and now Deshaun Watson wants out of the Houston Texans. So, oof, man, not a good time for Houston sports fans, and I'm sorry that all the star players are leaving Houston, and it's unfortunate, but it sucks. But what we're here to talk about is that it's Deshaun Watson and he's requesting a trade, and what teams could make the deal and will make the deal, and like who has the best chance to get a trade package together. From my perspective, from a casual fan's perspective, that's me, the casual fan, the filthy casual, talking to you in front of a camera. So, how did we even get here? Why is Deshaun Watson requesting a trade after 4 years of being a leader to the Texans, being a great person to the Houston community? Well, a number of factors in the last year is a big reason why Deshaun Watson wants out of Houston. So it all started with the 2020 free agency, where dumbass Bill O'Brien, who just became the general manager, who was also the head coach at the time, just became the general manager of the Texans, he trades away his star wide receiver and Deshaun Watson's number one weapon in the passing game, DeAndre Hopkins, to the Arizona Cardinals for literally a bag of shittles. Literally what I said in the first real episode of this podcast. He traded away DeAndre Hopkins to the Arizona Cardinals for chump change, a bag of shittles that don't taste great at all. In other words, what the Texans got back was a second round pick, if I remember correctly, and David Johnson, the running back. So it's not even a good return for a player with star talent in DeAndre Hopkins. Not good at all from dumbass Bill O'Brien, dumbass Bob. So what preceded was an 0-5 start for the Texans in the 2020 season. Bill O'Brien got fired, and it eventually led to a 4-12 season where Deshaun Watson literally had to throw the ball a million times behind a shitty offensive line to a bunch of no-named receivers. And the dysfunction of the organization. And there was a clip of J.J. Watt saying, "I'm sorry, we wasted the prime," or he was just apologizing to Watson for wasting his talent this year. There was a clip of that. I'm serious. So with all that shit happening this season, Watson's future only became even more unclear. Was he going to ask for a trade? Was he going to stay in Houston despite all that dysfunction? We didn't know until this past month, this month, January, the very start of January. So Deshaun Watson, as the Texans are trying to find a new general manager because, Bill O'Brien got fired because he was both the coach and the general manager. And they're also trying to find a new head coach. So Deshaun Watson wanted to get involved in finding the next head coach, wanting to find the next general manager. And he gave a list of names to the Texans ownership and front office, like Robert Saleh, Eric Bieniemy. I'm not sure about front office, but nonetheless, he wanted the front office and ownership to at least consider interviewing these people, at least interviewing them, say, hey, we're interested in you, to come to the Texans, and give us a reason why we should hire you as our next head coach. However, although the Texans said they would honor Deshaun Watson's request of considering interviewing these head coaching and general manager candidates, they didn't. They didn't at all. So what they did first to piss off Watson was hiring Patriots director of play personnel Nick Cassiero as their new general manager. So that pissed off Watson, and I think, in my opinion, was the turning point of this. But what hurt Watson even more, and I think this was the last straw for Watson, was not being consulted that in the process of hiring a general manager. He wasn't even told that Nick Cassiero was going to be the general manager. He, like with the DeAndre Hopkins trade, he had to find out on social media the next day. He probably saw a tweet from either Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter or some other reporter that Cassiero is going to be the Texans GM. And, he wanted out. The Texans hiring a Ravens assistant head coach David Coley didn't change Watson's mind, because literally the next day after the Texans reportedly hired, it's not official yet, David Coley from the Ravens, here we are now. Deshaun Watson has formally requested a trade out of Houston. So, here we are. The Deshaun Watson sweepstakes are underway. Who wants Watson? Are the Texans even going to consider trading Watson? And if not, then what the hell are they going to do? In my opinion, the Texans should just man up, and if they can't fix this relationship with Watson, which I think they won't, then trade the man. Let him play somewhere else. Let him play somewhere else, and then whatever you can get, rebuild with another quarterback. And because it's clear that you broke this man's trust, you broke the trust with a quarterback that could have been your franchise guy if you had built around him, especially on the offensive line. Deshaun Watson literally got sacked so many times in the first, and actually all of the years he's been there, and yet you failed to protect him. So I think, in my opinion, trade him. Just trade him as soon as possible. And that's what we're going to talk about here for the rest of this video. Which team has in my opinion, the best potential to trade for Deshaun Watson from 1 to I think 6 teams. I think, in my opinion, 6 teams. Not every team can actually trade for Deshaun Watson, either due to salary cap or they just don't really need a quarterback right now. So let's talk first about the elephants in the room. There are 3 things. Watson, whoever is going to trade for Deshaun Watson, the Texans are going to at least ask for minimum 2 or 3 first round picks. Yes, I mentioned this in the very first episode of the podcast, like the first real episode, not episode 0, episode 1, that whatever team's going to get Deshaun Watson in a trade, they're going to have to pay up. They're going to have to pay up the ducats. They're going to have to pay up the trade ducats. It's going to be either 2 or 3 first round picks, and who's willing to pay up, like who's going to mortgage their draft capital for the next 2 or 3 years. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a real interesting ploy and see who's going to be the most willing to do so. Who's going to be the most aggressive to get a star QB at the cost of mortgaging their draft capital. So the other thing is Watson has a no trade clause. So if the Texans want to trade him to X team, Watson can say, "Nuh-uh, I don't want to go to that team." So denied. Pick another one of my options. So fuck you. So Watson pretty much has the leverage on where he wants to be traded. Again, but the Texans get to decide if they want to trade him. But again, they should trade him. So the Texans can and will find Watson a certain amount of money each day he misses off-season team activities or training camp later this year, or even games that he misses. And I think, again, this should happen as soon as possible, because if you keep Watson around and you try out whoever's the QB, whether it be a backup or someone you sign off the street, it's going to ruin the team chemistry. If the Texans ever repair this relationship with Watson, if he comes back, then it's going to ruin the whole chemistry of the team. Especially with the coach, especially with teammates. If Watson comes back, all of a sudden it's "Hey guys, I changed my mind. I want to come back." Let's say the middle of the season, it's gonna completely fuck up the entire chemistry of the team, and who knows what will happen there. I mean, as good as Deshaun Watson is, you just can't expect him to turn around the whole team, especially with the chemistry that the team has built up, going to training camp, going to preseason, going to OTAs, and going to the regular season, etc., etc. Again, that's just my opinion. That's just me being a casual. So do as you will. Roast me about that analysis. But nonetheless, let's talk about the teams that are first unlikely to trade for Watson. And I have my reasoning. You have your reasoning. You can disagree. We can agree to disagree all we want. But again, this is just my thoughts. So the first team, actually these are the first 2 teams I have are within the division, and first team is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And this simply because I don't think the Jaguars want to part with the number 1 overall pick unless they really think Deshaun Watson is the man in Jacksonville. But I think the Jaguars are dead set on Trevor Lawrence leading this rebuild. This rebuild filled with new receivers, new everything. Whenever they decide to make their playoff, their hopefully renewed playoff push, whenever that is for the Jaguars. But either way, the Texans don't and shouldn't trade their QB within the division unless they want to get their asses kicked by Watson and the Jaguars twice a year. So the Texans shouldn't be stupid and do that. And the Indianapolis Colts. same thing with the Jaguars. Texans should be trading within the division unless they want to get their asses kicked by a QB that was within the division, was with the Texans. So something to consider. And then not only that, the Texans may not find the Colts offer very appealing because the Colts are probably going to have to give up first round picks. And the Colts are still a playoff team. They just need a quarterback and they can make a deep run. But their first round pick is in the mid 20s. I think it's early or mid 20s. If I believe it yeah. Let me double check that. They're 21, so early 20s, so that's still not good. That's still not good. So I don't think that's something the Texans will be convinced to do. So I don't see Indianapolis Colts as an option. The Chicago Bears. Do the Texans really want to trade to another dumb dick front office who had 2 opportunities to get Deshaun Watson in 2017? One with their natural 3rd overall pick given if the 49ers elected to not to draft Deshaun Watson at number 2, and the other opportunity when the Bears made the decision to trade up one spot for the 49ers to swap picks at 2 and 3 to trade up one spot, go to number 2. They had one chance to get Deshaun Watson, and look who they got. Look who they got today. Your 2021 Nickelodeon valuable player, Mick Trubisky. That's who they got. So, aside from that dumbass decision, the team is also over the salary cap. So, even if they wanted to make the deal happen, they'd have to clear up some space, probably on the defensive side of the ball. So that would take a hit. And if Deshaun Watson even wanted to come to Chicago, what's in Chicago besides the deep dish Chicago style pizza? And who do they have on offense? Who is what's on the receiving core? The offensive line sucked ass. The running game was not there. That was pretty evident in the wild card game against the Saints. So, yikes. The Chicago Bears would be an instant X for Watson, a no for when Deshaun Watson is trying to negotiate with the Texans in these trade discussions. The New Orleans Saints, I know it was brought up on First Take, Sports Center earlier today, but one thing that they don't realize is that how are they going to get the money to fit Deshaun Watson's contract, especially in the long term? The Saints are in cap space hell. They are $100 million over the cap. This applies this year and probably next year too. They are in cap space hell. $100 million over the cap. So they can't spend money on anything. They need to save money. They need to make room for whoever they're going to try to re-sign. How are they possible to save money? 100 over the cap. That's insane. How are they going to get Deshaun Watson when they're 100 in debt? So another team is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Although they're not as deep in the cap as the Saints, they're still over the cap, $34 million. They could try to make it work by releasing some players, but I don't know. It's kind of risky. So we've talked about the 5 teams that are unlikely to make a trade for Deshaun Watson, and there are probably several others. Again, that's either due to already having a quality quarterback or some other reason. And let's talk about the teams that are likely to offer a trade package to the Texans for Deshaun Watson. The top of the list is the New York Jets, and let's talk about the pros and cons. they have behind the Jaguars. The Jets have the second best salary cap situation in the NFL. Only behind the Jaguars. They currently have, actually the third best, sorry, behind the Colts and the Jaguars. They have $63 million in cap space going into free agency in March. So they have a lot of money to spend. Deshaun Watson also likes the new head coach, Robert Saleh. So Saleh is going to be bringing in the same culture, like this very head-on, all gas, no pedal culture that he instituted with the 49ers defense. And obviously, New York is the biggest media capital of the world. And the Jets have the draft capital to get it done. If you want Houston Texans are like, you want Deshaun Watson? Give us the number 2 overall pick, your second round pick, and hell, even throw in Sam Darnold. But the problem is with the Jets is that they're still a rebuilding team. They're still probably a year or maybe even 2 away from making it back to the playoffs. Like, even with Deshaun Watson, you're still kind of dealing with the problems you had with the Texans. A bad offensive line, no receivers. Like, the defense did show up a little during a few games in the Jets season in 2020, but you kind of also have to address that side of the ball. But mainly it's on offense, because obviously that's what Deshaun Watson plays. So you have there are a lot of team needs that the Jets need to address, and that those can't simply be addressed in 1 year, like receiver, offensive line, corners, safeties, and I don't know, about the Jets ownership. So they're not exactly, they're still iffy when it comes to free agency. But not only that, the jury's still out on Robert Saleh as a head coach, and I don't know how well he's gonna do as a coach. So it's gonna be interesting to see how he does, and that might be a factor in whether or not Deshaun Watson wants to go to the Jets. So if the Texans and Jets do make a deal, so my opinion, my proposed trade package for between the Jets and the Texans would get the Jets' second overall pick this year, the Jets' second round pick at 34, then the Jets' 22 first and third round picks in 2022, and they would get Sam Darnold. So at least with Sam Darnold, you can rebuild around him. You could choose to rebuild around him or use him as like a stopgap and decide what to do with him after the next year's free agency. And then the Jets could get Deshaun Watson or a third or fourth round pick. So something to consider for the Jets. And then the second team on my list is the Miami Dolphins. Deshaun Watson believes in Brian Flores, and the Dolphins have the second best draft capital to get a deal done because, well, the Texans and Dolphins like to do business together because the Dolphins pretty much have half of their draft capital from the Texans. They got the third overall pick from the Texans. They got a couple other first round picks from previous trades from the Texans, and they have a good amount of salary cap for the 2021 season. But just like the Jets, they're still a rebuilding team that's have to address the offensive line, the receivers, the defense, and I don't know if they really want to hurt the confidence of Tua Tagovailoa, and I don't know if the Texans believe in Tua. So I don't know if the Dolphins want to hurt his confidence. So I don't know. It's interesting to see what the Dolphins do. But if they make a trade for Watson, all I see the Dolphins getting is Watson, no picks, and pretty much the Texans would be getting all their most of their picks back. the Dolphins first round picks, 3 and 18. The pick that the Dolphins got from the Texans at 3, and then their natural pick at 18, a second round pick, a future first and third, and that's pretty much all the Texans would get. Oh, and Tua, I forgot to mention that. Another team to watch out for is the Washington football team, because they have their own quarterback need to address. For what I like in this situation for Deshaun is, well, you got a great culture under Ron Rivera. He's turning that team around. They just need a quarterback and a receiver, two good receivers, and a quality lineman to complement the defense that's being led by Chase Young. And at $35 million, I mean, that's not bad. Like, you got the 5th best cap space this offseason, so you can make that you can get that done. But the problem is, this is a team still owned by Dan Snyder, so it's not like, I don't know how confident Deshaun Watson wants to go there. Even with the culture Ron Rivera is implementing. And then you also got a new GM in Martin Mayhew, so you don't know like how aggressive or how I don't know what the opposite word of it is, but nonetheless, you don't know how aggressive or opposite of aggressive, or aggressive or passive he's gonna be if whether or not he's gonna pull the trigger on this trade. So I don't know if he's gonna do it. And then they also have various needs to address besides QB. Like I said, receiver, offensive line. They could use corners too, and another defensive lineman or edge rusher to complement Chase Young. So the Washington football team have to consider whether or not it's worth going after Watson or going for someone like cheaper but can help them win too. So if the Washington football team really wants to go all in on Deshaun Watson, I could see the Texans getting a 2021 first round pick. The Washington has slated to select 19th this year. The Texans would also get Washington's third round picks at 74 and 83. Keep in mind they got the 74th pick from the Niners in the Trent Williams trade, the offensive tackle, and some future first and fourth round picks. And then Washington would get Deshaun Watson and the Texans 2021 fourth round picks, 100 and 113th. Again, these are just my trade package ideas, but again, it's just my opinion. You can roast me on it. And then we got 3 more teams here. The Detroit Lions are also in the market for a new QB. They could do a pretty much with this trade deal. You're just swapping Matthew Stafford and Deshaun Watson to different teams. Stafford's going to the Texans and Watson's going to the Lions. So there's pretty much switching conferences. But if the Lions are gonna trade for Watson, they're probably gonna have to package Matthew Stafford and another player to go along with that trade. So they're also essentially helping each other too, since they're both rebuilding. And the Lions will have more cap space in 2022. So I mean, they could take a $10 million hit in 2021, because that's what the salaries for Watson's first year of his contract and the new extension is going to be. So they could take a hit in their salary cap, and they should have more in next year when the salary cap is expected to go up and not be hit by the pandemic. But the problem is, again, the Lions are rebuilding just like the Jets and the Dolphins, so they have needs to address, like receiver, running back, and a defense. So if Deshaun Watson wants to have the Lions on his I want to go there list, the Texans are gonna have to do a lot of convincing for Watson to go there. And I don't know what else the Lions can offer besides first round picks and Matthew Stafford. So that's going to be something that I don't know. The Lions could be an X factor for Deshaun Watson. I just don't know if they can get it done. But if they do get it done, here's my wishful thinking trade package. And this is my opinion. Texans would get a first round pick for this year at 7th overall. Again, 7th overall, the Texans could get a quarterback here with that pick. And then they would get the Lions second or third round picks too, either or second or third round. The 2022 first round pick from the Lions, and then of course Matthew Stafford and another player from the Lions. And then the Lions would get Watson, 2021, a third or fourth round pick at 67 and 100 from the Texans, and I don't know, I'm being generous since the Texans and Lions are essentially helping each other. 2022 third and fourth round. I had second, but I think that's too generous. We got two more teams here. The New England Patriots. Some pros for the Patriots. I think having Watson in a Bill Belichick-led team would help the Patriots get back in AFC East title contention. And the Patriots have the cap space to pull it off for 2021 and beyond. At 50, for 2021, they have $58 million in cap space, so they have the money to get Deshaun Watson in a trade. And they also got a good culture and, again, a good coach in Belichick. But the problem is they don't have a lot of receivers, a lot of good receivers. Julian Edelman is getting older, so you can't really rely on him that much anymore. And if you even consider him a top receiver, again, he's getting old. So they also need to address the secondary and front four in the offseason, even with players returning from their opt-outs. And you have some free agents in that area that you have to resign, or if they don't resign, you have to resign some from the open market. And if this is a big decision that Bill Belichick has to make. And that Patriots front office has to decide if they want to trade for a generational talent in Deshaun Watson at the cost of mortgaging their draft capital, or if they want to use that 15th pick that they have and go for the next, whoever is the best remaining QB prospect. It could be Trey Lance, the names that are being thrown out there for the scouting is Trey Lance, Mac Jones from Alabama, whoever, Kyle Trask. Again, these are the names that people keep throwing out there. So they have to decide. They have to decide what they want to do at quarterback, because obviously Cam Newton's not the answer long term. So Patriots got to decide. So if the Patriots do decide to go after Deshaun Watson and the trade does happen between the two teams, the Texans will get a 2021 first round pick at 15, a second round pick at 46, and future first round picks for 2022 and 2023. So this is literally the team, the one or two teams that has to literally give up 3 first round picks. So this is literally giving up a lot of draft capital right here. So the Patriots would get Deshaun Watson and a third round pick for 2020 for this year. I really couldn't come up with anything else for this trade package. So my last team on this list, and I obviously had to put this team because, well, it's my team and we have our own QB problem too. That's the San Francisco 49ers. We have our own problems at QB, so we might as well throw our name in the hat too. So the pros, having Deshaun Watson on the 49ers, out of all the teams, we have a team, again, this is just bias. This is my opinion. The 49ers have a team, when healthy, ready to win now on both offense and defense. on offense, you got you could have Deshaun Watson throwing to George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Raheem Mostert, and then the Niners also just recently re-signed Jeff Wilson Jr. And well, who knows who they'll sign in free agency or draft in the coming offseason. And then on defense, while they still have Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, Fred Warner, and whoever they get in free agency and the draft, they may take a step back. But Watson on that offense, it's going to be crazy. It'll be nuts. The Niners and Watson will instantly elevate them in a deep playoff run. And not only that, Deshaun Watson doesn't have to be overshadowed by Patrick Mahomes, obviously, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and upcoming rising quarterback Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, all of whom are on either rising or upcoming teams in the AFC. The AFC is starting to get overcrowded with like rising quarterbacks. So Deshaun Watson probably doesn't want to get overshadowed. So why not go to the NFC, where a lot of teams don't have definitive answers at quarterback, and there are a couple of teams like Green Bay, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, who will soon eventually have to answer who's going to be our quarterback. And only one team, Seattle, has a definitive answer in Russell Wilson, but for some reason they can't support him. The only problems with the 49ers getting Watson is we don't have much draft capital as the Jets or the Dolphins. We can offer the 12th pick, but I don't know how much draft space we have to give up, so that's gonna be interesting. And it would cost a lot. It would cost a lot to make it happen, and it remains to see if it'll be worth it. It remains to see if it'll be worth it, and that's why I think Shanahan and John Lynch might be hesitant to get aggressive, because in all honesty, I think making this for Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch to make this trade 3 years after they had an opportunity to, that would just be them saying, we messed up, and while we messed up, we're kind of prideful that we messed up. So that's the situation. Like, that's something to keep in mind if Niner fans want to have Deshaun Watson, is whether or not Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch want to trade for him. And you also have to think if you want to cut or include Jimmy Garoppolo in a trade package. So that's something to keep an eye on too. So if somehow in some way this trade happens between the Texans and the Niners, the Texans would get and I believe this is going to be the biggest, like the most a team would give up, a 2021 first round pick. We would give up the 12th overall pick, so it at least help the Texans get a quarterback, the best remaining prospect, and we would give up the this year's second round pick at 43. And this is where it gets dicey. This is where it gets costly. So I don't know if it will become worth it. A 2022 and 2023 first round picks for 2022 and 2023. So oof. And maybe the 2020 the fourth or fifth round pick for 2022, and if he also agrees to the trade by waiving his no trade clause, Jimmy Garoppolo. If Jimmy Garoppolo agrees to be traded to the Houston Texans. That's a big oof. So that's a lot to trade for Watson if you're the 49ers. But in return, they get a generational talent in Deshaun Watson, and maybe a couple of picks in the third or fourth round, and maybe a future fifth rounder. But that's why I have them. That's why I have my team so low on this list, because it's going to cost a lot, and I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if it's worth mortgaging the future, especially with the draft capital, when there's also so many needs that the red and gold have to address. So I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if it's worth going after Deshaun Watson when we have so many concerns that we have, not just at QB, but at receiver, in the secondary, at safety, on the defensive line. So that's something that Niners fans should, that Niners front office should consider, and actually all the teams I just listed should consider. Is it worth trading so much for a guy like Deshaun Watson? That remains to be seen. That's going to be the biggest storyline for this entire offseason. Is Deshaun Watson going to be traded? If he is, for how much, and will it be worth it? That remains to be seen. Anyway, everyone, I don't know. This extended longer than I thought it would, but it did. And I don't know if is this going to be an extra, or is this going to be an actual episode? I'm still sticking with the idea that it's going to be an extra, because of, well, I don't know. It could be an episode, but for now we're sticking with it as an extra. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the Deshaun Watson situation. Yes, he is formally asked to be traded, and as a casual fan, it's going to be interesting to see where he goes next. I just don't know if it's going to be here in San Francisco, but wherever he goes, let's just hope he's happy with wherever he goes next. But anyway, everyone, that's it for this extra. If it's not an extra, then it's probably a full-on episode, because this turned out longer than I thought it would. For the Very Cold Lasagna podcast, I am your host, DylanLasagna. Make sure to keep that lasagna very cold and in the fridge, filled with your very cold takes, your very dumb takes, or very good takes on the world of sports and pro wrestling. And make sure to follow me on Twitter at Very Cold Lasagna, and listen to me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and subscribe to me on YouTube by watching the vodcasts and extras. They're hopefully not as long as this one. And subscribing to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be notified of each and every upload. Anyway, everyone, I am signing off. Keep that fridge very cold and that lasagna very cold, and I will see you all next time. Take care.